Hey everyone, Cody Menz here with another video on a unreleased tank for World of Tanks PC. This tank is the Object 452K, which is a unreleased tier 10 reward heavy tank as of the World of Tanks 1.22.1 update. This is the common test server, so who knows if they'll add more things in, and this tank most likely we won't see this until sometime in 2024, possibly even getting into 2025 at this point, for either some sort of competitive mode reward or assembly shop, something like that. Basically, this tank, looking at what they have for the historical reference, it says it was the result of 1960s research to find new tank layouts, specifically with the driver placed within the turret instead of the hull. Control problems basically were going to be resolved due to fiber optics and television equipment mounted on the hull on the outside. During the design stage, it was proposed to improve both the limited elevation and depression angles of the gun. So even though this thing is very pancake-like and squashed, it does have 7 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of elevation. Or who knows, maybe Wargaming threw that in there to kind of cover up that they make things impossible. In any event, though, just going on, it's supposed to, the optics and basically putting the driver within the turret was revolutionary for this. The suspension was planned to be made using new materials such as titanium alloy for the roller discs, and despite all of these great things, it was never built. So it is a pretty modern design. We'll get into kind of what the closest tank is to this, which surprisingly is not Russian and is almost identical to this stat-wise. Looking at a quick little armor view of this, and I'll pop into a quick little like tanks.gg view here too, and I'll put the links to everything in the description. So like just based off 122 millimeter, this is so a heat round, 300 millimeters. This thing, the armor's decent. It's nothing, perfect. The front's gonna get penned because it's high pen heat, but it does have 67 degrees on the upper glacis, which is pretty high. So you could get this with a little bit of gun depression to be at a bounce angle, versus like AP. Turret pretty strong, and then it does have a cupola on the top here, a little bit further back. So like if you are using some gun depression, it's gonna be a little hard to hit, since this mantlet does cover it if you're using a little bit of gun depression. Now versus something like AP changes a little bit, since I'm just keeping the pen the same, but it does open up. The turret, while strong, isn't crazy super like mega thick. So APCR for high pen rounds, we'll have a chance to pen the turret if it's not going to like ricochet off. Otherwise, armor, again, it's decent, to where it's what you'd kind of expect from an AMX M4 54 when it comes to performance wise. That this tank is almost like a carbon copy Russian tank stat wise for the AMX 54. So getting into things, so 560 alpha, which is extremely high. You're not going to basically beat that for a Russian heavy, unless you're doing like the double shot, from the ST2. Closest thing is the Object 780 here. That's at 530. And then looking at the 277 at 490, it's pretty low compared to the 560. It's got decent pen, 260 pen for the standard AP round. Your premium round is 320, so decent, but not perfect there. But it's nice having the 2 different rounds. And before I get on, so the HE round's nothing spectacular. Your typical HE round with about 65 millimeters of pen. Now, this thing compared to the AMX, because it's very close to this once you get into more, the nitty gritty. It's got a little bit less gun depression. It's got more gun elevation, however. Same aim time. Dispersion's a little bit worse. On the move accuracy for this tank is a pinch worse than the AMX M4 54, moving like forward, backward, and turning your hull. However, turning your turret is much better than AMX. You won't get as much of a penalty for moving your turret for your gun accuracy. Identical DPM because the rate of fires are the same, and compared to something like the 780, 277, it's got, you know, pretty good firepower. It's got alpha, it's got pen, it's got a bit of DPM. Now, survivability. Currently, there's 2,400 hit points. I'm assuming that's potentially in there because, like, even though the armor is, like, it's okay, it's mainly ricocheting off, you know, like, you know, bouncing things, especially against lower tiers where it's not as solid as you would expect for a heavy tank, especially like comparing it to the AMX here, because as we get into things here, this thing's actually, so even though it's got the same mobility stats here, it's a bit slower with the specific power. And when it comes to the like soft stats and stuff like that, it's got a little bit worse soft stats, like terrain resistance than the AMX. So this thing's slower. So I feel like coupling, you know, the armor being mainly based off of angles and that, maybe they threw some extra hit points, but some of these could just be placeholders because this tank's not, it hasn't been through, you know, multiple rounds of basically balancing and stuff. Otherwise, you know, when it comes down, same view range, and it does have crazy camouflage. This is where I have a feeling this might change, because for a heavy tank, having almost 18% stationary camo, even though this thing is really tiny and squashed down, it's not, you know, too far away from the object 780. And then on the move camo is almost 9%, which is crazy for, you know, essentially a heavy tank, and that's with basically nothing on this thing. So this is where, when it comes down to it, like, this tank seems like it doesn't seem like it's going to be broken by any means. Although, keep an eye on the camouflage stats, because that's really interesting. There were, yes, it's really tiny and compact, but basically you're getting, you know, an AMX M4 54, a little bit less gun depression, and being close to the ground. The gun is right in the front, which still helps, but, you know, this thing's basically based off of having a little bit extra angle on the upper part of your tank to bounce things off of the, you know, front of the turret, upper hull. Otherwise, the armor of this is going to be a bit harder to use compared to like the AMX M4 54. That tank, you know, is a little bit thicker armor, so you're a little bit less reliant upon a little bit of luck. In any event, though, it seems pretty interesting, and balance-wise, even though I feel like they'll end up changing some things with this, it doesn't look like it's going to need too many changes. And, you know, like any tank, though, when you're, you know, thinking about, is this thing going to be completely broken, overpowered, you know, bad for the game? I don't think so, just because it is close enough to the 54. And it does have that top cupola weak spot, which is nice, even though it'll be hard to hit when it's using all of its gun depression. It's there. Tanks that don't have cupola weak spots and perform like this, you know, those are the broken ones. But in any event, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully, you know, this has you a little bit excited for this tank for whenever we see it, whether it's sometime in 2024 or who knows, maybe they're on to 2025 this year. Thanks. Have a great one. See you in another video. Bye.